taking a little while. Anthony, today's going to be a real treat.
Wednesday is Sunday.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey, Anthony Valkyrie, so great to see you today. I'm excited for today. We're going to be talking about food. You know how much I love food, Anthony.
Well, you know what? My childhood is just kind of all swirling through my head right now because Carvel was a big part of my childhood. And so, as most people know, I come on the show and I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I didn't know who we were going to have on today. And now I know, and I'm excited.
I know.
And actually, I grew up in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and there's a Carvel on Avenue X and Coney Island Avenue that has been there since I am literally 80. I was born and I went to Carvel, and I still go there, and it's still the same structure on the outside. And in the inside, it's all brand new equipment. It looks beautiful, and the marketing is beautiful, and it's the same owners now. I think the grandson owns it.
Cool.
I can't eat ice cream. I can only eat non-dairy, but I go there. My kids are who are grown now. We just love going there. It's really a part of kind of our family, and it's a part of at least my childhood. But before we go on to our guest, Glenn,
before we do that, before we geek out on places like Carvel and Moe's and all of these great bands, I just want to say, speaking about geeks, what about Best Buy Business? Check them out at bestbuy.com/hospitality because they can help you in anything that you need. They do TVs, patio furniture, room sanitizing solutions, and that Geek Squad, they got over 4,000 agents to help you tackle any size job anywhere in the country. Again, be sure to check them out at bestbuy.com/hospitality. So, Anthony.
Don't forget Best Buy for Business. So now can I surprise you a little bit?
You got a surprise for me?
David, show him the surprise. I want everybody to laugh. This is important. I was laughing all day at this yesterday. And we'll probably get in trouble for all the improvements we're doing, but whatever.
Okay.
I am going to be happy this year. I am going to make myself happy.
What is up with the universe?
I'm given the gift of time.
Wash your hands!
Inside good. Outside bad. But
Not much. I want to go!
Now on, I'm not getting out of this chair ever. Okay, from now on, this chair is the one.
I discovered I'm able to count all my teeth using just my tongue.
It's getting worse and worse. It should have been called It's a Sucky Life. And just when you think it can't suck anymore, it does.
This year was supposed to be great. I'm fine.
Well, Anthony, that pretty much sums up this year. I think that is absolutely hysterical.
This is so unfair.
It'll be okay.
Will it? Will it?
My daughter Nina sent that to me yesterday, and I laughed. I've been showing that to everyone. I've never laughed out loud at a social media thing in my life. I think because and you laughed the last when he said, "I'm fine," because that's what we say. We're fine.
Hey, we're fine. We are absolutely fine, and there's no reason to believe that we're not fine. But I'll tell you what is actually going to make me fine. Catching up with a good friend, Jim Holthouser. You might know him as one of the top executives formerly at Hilton. I think he was SSVVVP of pretty much everything while he was over there. Went ahead, retired and stuff. And I think that he couldn't handle being on the sidelines. Now he's CEO of Focus Brands, a really cool company. Let's welcome Jim Holthouser to the show. Jim! So
hey,
great to
guys.
see you, friend. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me today.
So it's true what they say about old hotel guys. Not that you're an old hotel guy, but us old hotel guys, that we don't retire, we just go take bigger jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't go away.
Okay, so let me tee this up for you, Jim. So Focus Brands is a really cool company, and what we've been talking about here is as the hospitality industry has had a lot of trouble, I'm seeing from a lot of owners and developers looking for other avenues that they could find success. And with Jim over at Focus Brands, we thought we might be able to talk about the overlap between hospitality and some fast casual brands, and some of the other offerings that they have. So you might know brands such as Auntie Anne's, the aforementioned Carvel. I got Fudgy the Whale behind me, who also doubles as Santa Claus for the holidays, and Cinnabon, Jamba, McAlister's Deli, Schlotsky's, and of course, Moe's Southwestern Grill. I'm wearing green today in honor of the salsa verde that they have over there that I love so much. Jim, so great to see you. Welcome officially to No Vacancy Live.
Again, thrilled to be here, guys.
Well, I am going to spend some money in your store probably today. I have to get a ice cream cake for my daughter for her. She's graduating college and she wants an ice cream cake. Now, I went out and bought a fancy cake that I'm having personally designed for her, but apparently she wants a Carvel ice cream cake. So that tells you how strong that brand is.
That brand is amazing, Anthony. I've got a stat for you guys that blew me away as I made the transition from hotels right to QSR. And so 70% of the ice cream cakes sold in grocery stores in this country, right, are Carvel cakes. 70%.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you have about 350 stores, right, bricks and mortar stores, right, just like you grew up with, right? But kind of behind that, right, is this huge manufacturing play, right, that basically serves customers, basically out in their homes, outside of bricks and mortar stores.
Yeah. Well, Carvel, I mean, Fudgy the Whale and Wednesday is Sunday Carvel and Tom Carvel. I mean, they did such a great job early on when I was younger. I mean, it was like kind of McDonald's. It was always there. And their catchy phrases, Sunday, Wednesday is Sunday. Everybody lined up for a free Sunday on Wednesday.
Yep.
And it was some of the best marketing. And not only that, like when I go into the Carvel on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn, and if you don't know the store, you really got to like learn that store, because that store is absolutely a touchstone in Brooklyn. And in really New York, because I think it's the only standalone store like that in New York that is that old-fashioned style. And when you walk in, though, it's 2020. When you're on the outside, it's 1965, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you that brand has some amazing consumer love in the Northeast and in Florida. It's really surprising how deep that is. And just hearing you guys, I mean, we hear this all the time about Carvel.
Yeah, and it's such, I mean, really, we grew up with this, so it's really cool. But there are other brands that I didn't grow up with, Cinnabon and Auntie Anne's, but I do enjoy those a lot. When I'm leaving Las Vegas and I'm waiting for my flight, it's like I've got to have something to make myself feel a little better, and that's when I get those treats. As a matter of fact, Jim, the Auntie Anne's pretzels are so loved in this house, my wife uses them to bribe my kids to go shopping. If you go with me to the mall, we'll get you some Auntie Anne's pretzels.
That's funny. It's funny. You guys have these memories of Carvel, from your childhood. When my kids were small, we were raising them. Our places were McAlister's and Moe's. That's where they always wanted to go after Sunday church, right? We raised them in the South, and that was their place. And so those brands have just a lot of meaning to my family and my two kids.
And that's interesting because I don't know those brands. So
right.
Because what kind of brands are? I don't even know.
Okay, so Moe's is a Southwestern concept, right? Specializing in burrito bowls, and its distribution really is kind of skews south and southeast. And McAlister's is a brand of nearly 500 units. That's basically a deli concept with a really broad menu from everything from soups and sandwiches to salads. So yeah, and they also skew very, very southern. So that's probably why you don't know them.
Before we get into the opportunities for not only employees coming over to that part of the business, but also for owners to buy those type of businesses, what was it like for you to go from the hotel business, like day one when you went from the hotel business into this new role? What was that like?
Anthony, again, I would say it was the transition was a lot easier than I thought, because fundamentally this is a franchise business, it's a branding business, it's an international business, it's a domestic business. So many parallels to what I ran when I was at Hilton, right? And then secondly, when you look at this business and you look at some of the dynamics and the trends and the opportunities, challenges, et cetera, it's like looking back in the mirror about 15 or 20 years ago in the hotel business. Mm-hmm. So as an example, right, the hotel business 20 years ago was fairly fragmented, right? Now, today, it's very consolidated. You've got 5 or 6 major players, right? Same thing is happening in this space today. Probably 10 years ago, we began the rush to all things digital in the hotel space, right? That is now happening in the QSR space. Emergence of third parties. Right. At the end of the day, the issue that the names might be different. It might be Expedia on one side, and over here it's Uber Eats and DoorDash, et cetera. But again, the issues are identical. It's really a question of who's going to own the customer and working out economics that at the end of the day balance for everybody. The issues are almost identical to what I faced.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting because I never even thought about comparing Uber Eats to a third party like Hotels.com.
It's the same thing. They take a big chunk of your money, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, but I never really put those two together.
Yeah.
One of the things in your brands and looking at the brands that you do have, I will tell you from my personal experience, every one of those brands are clean. They're efficient, and they're clean. I'm a clean freak, as everyone knows. And when I go to an Auntie Anne's and I go to Cinnabon or I go to Carvel, and that's kind of, I haven't been to Carvel in a couple of years. When I walked in, I was like, wow, it's still really clean. On the outside, again, it looks like 1965, but on the inside, it's like it's spotless. So that to me is important. If I'm going to go get something and I'm going to, treat myself to something, I don't want to have a bad experience. I want that treat to be the entire experience.
Right. That's a good point. And it's just, and again, another parallel to the hotel business. Cleanliness is paramount. It's table stakes. It's not a differentiator. If you don't have it, you're just probably not going to do very well, stay in business very long, right? Again, that's the best way I can explain it. It's table stakes, and it's definitely true in this business too.
That's fascinating. All right, so you were doing some other stuff in between Hilton and this, but then all of a sudden you decide to get back into the game. You have an opportunity to take a CEO role, something you've probably been thinking about and preparing for your entire lifetime. What was that experience for you, saying, "Hey, I want to take on a new challenge at this point in my career," and why would you even bother to go ahead and take on this challenge?
Again, that's a good question. There was about a 2-year gap between this role and when I left Hilton. And honestly, when I left Hilton, I never expected to jump back into the corporate world again. I've kind of been there, done that. I was doing my own thing. So I have ownership stakes in a lot of hotels, and I've developed apartments and I've rental properties and this and that. So I was focused on my real estate business. As you guys know, I'm also a musician, and I ended up recording 4 albums for this nonprofit as a way for them to basically generate funds for their mission. And at the end of 2 years, it just so happens I started to think that, gosh, man, I've checked all these boxes faster than I thought I was going to. And it just so happens a good friend of mine, Paul Brown, who's the CEO over Inspire, it's a sister company of Focus Brands, came to Memphis and he told me about the opportunity, and it just seemed right. And as I learned more about this business, about this company, its model, I thought, gosh, this is just like what I know and what I'm really good at. So, that's basically the story.
So a really important question, and we have a lot of good business questions for you, but a really important question. Of course, all your brands, it was your last meal. What's the one thing you have to have?
If it were my last meal,
your last thing to eat before you
know what? I'll tell you what. I'm gonna, if it's my last one, I'm going to go for the most indulgent thing I can think of. I want one of those giant, gooey, sweet Cinnabon rolls. Nice. I don't allow myself to do that very often. In fact, I've asked the team here in our corporate office. I said, because we have kitchens here we have 7 kitchens in this building, right? And chefs for every one of these brands, right? They're constantly testing this and that. I said, keep Cinnabon away from me. I'm not that disciplined.
Right. That's hysterical, Jim. So yeah, you're surrounded by all this food all the time. That's got to be a big challenge to be engaged and understand what the product is while still trying to stay fit and trim as you are.
Well, that's why you have a Peloton bike. That's why you get on every morning, because you're right. If you don't do something and you work in this industry, it's really hard to keep the weight off. It's everywhere. I mean, because the brands are constantly innovating, right?
Yep.
You're always trying to push the envelope, trying to find that next breakthrough, product. And so, yeah, food is everywhere. And of course, you can imagine I get asked to test it all the time.
So, your company acquires companies, but also do you develop them internally?
No, we don't. That's not the strategy. It's definitely an M&A play. And Anthony, I'll tell you why. It's just, again, this is a very large, fragmented industry, right? That's really kind of the whole investment thesis in QSR. There are hundreds and hundreds of small regional subscale brands that need scale in order to basically thrive, compete, in some cases just stay alive. And so there's just a lot of different easy ways and faster ways of building out your portfolio and serving your customers rather than developing brands from scratch. We did that at Hilton, and it's a good 12 to 24 months, between inception of the brand and then actually when the first store is going to open. Sometimes it's 3 years.
So if I have a small regional brand that I want to get to the next level and I call you and say, hey, I have this sub shop, I have this cookie shop, I have this lollipop shop. How do you look at that? How do you become part of your group?
Yeah. So again, what I'm looking for is to diversify the flavors of focus, right? So we've got strong sandwich brands. I got a deli brand. I got a Southwest brand. I've got all these indulgent brands like Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon. Right. I'm trying to grow the flavors. And so because my hypothesis is that this industry is going to develop, as I said, along the lines of the hotel business. And one of these days, portfolios, right, will matter.
Right.
Today, everything is brand led today. Right. But again, if my hypothesis is right and there's going to be lots of consolidation, you'll end up with big players of 20 or 30 brands. And everyone's going to figure out, my gosh, we can market one portfolio a lot more aggressively to consumers, bring them in, lock them into our ecosystem. But to do that, you've got to have a lot of distribution and you got to have a lot of variety of flavors. But that's where I think it's going to go, and that is informing our M&A strategy.
So give me an example of that. Like, give me. I kind of understand it, but just explain that again.
So today, right? If we're McAlister's led and Schlotsky's led, et cetera. If I were to market to consumers as focus, right? Number one, no one really knows what focus is.
Right.
But number two, none of the brands right now have enough distribution or scale. Customers aren't going to be willing to commit to this family, right? And so what we need to do then is to continue to build the footprint of every brand. Give the customer lots of choice, right? And then they'll commit to you. So you're always not in the mood just for a sandwich or for a Cinnabon. Sometimes you want chicken. Sometimes you want hamburger. Sometimes you may want taco. You may want Mediterranean. So the more flavors we can offer consumers, the bigger the footprint, right? The more likely it is that customers one day will kind of lock into and give most of their food wallet to a company like Focus. And I think that's where it's headed.
So what do you do to get the Focus name? Because I didn't know your brand, Focus. I knew all your brands, but I didn't know Focus until 3 seconds before the show started.
And again, it's because it's functioned as a holding company.
Right.
And you may not know the holding company, but you definitely know the brands.
Right.
My point in the future is that, of course, the brands will always have the starting role, but increasingly you'll find opportunities to go to market as portfolios. That's where I think this is going.
Understood.
Right. Yeah, and you look at some of the other companies out there, they all have names that generally the consumers don't know. It's the individual brands within those families that they know. Now, what I think is interesting to this, and goes back to your point of saying it's 15 to 20 years ago in the hospitality realm, all of these companies were disparate. I think it was probably mid to late 90s when some of the consolidation started to happen, right? That's when Promise was first bought by Hilton and those kind of moves that occurred. This is happening here. For a gentleman like you, this gives you and your franchise team a lot of opportunity Because as we said at the beginning of this conversation, Carvel's known in New York, Carvel is known in Florida, but it's not necessarily known in North Dakota. And a lot of your other brands, McAlister's, Anthony didn't know what it was. So there's a lot of chance for you to expand all of those brands. And my hunch is, I've seen this from other companies, put multiple of your brands together into a single unit that played at different day parts and consumer taste.
Correct.
So maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So as we build out the portfolio, let me kind of complete the thought, because Glenn, you bring up some good points. You not only want to offer a variety of flavors and a lot of different optionalities, because not everybody wants to eat only chicken or sandwiches, et cetera, right? But you're right. You need brands that can serve customers in different day parts. So last time I looked, most of us don't eat Cinnabon for dinner, but right. That's a great.
Speak for yourself, Jim.
Right? Yeah, that's true. But it's a great breakfast item. It's a great snack. It's a great indulgence for dessert. So you're absolutely right. And so those are the things that are informing which brands that we bring in next. But yeah, we're definitely on the hunt to expand and do so in a really thoughtful, strategic way. Right.
And for those of you who don't know, the term QSR means quick service restaurant. And I think, Jim, you guys need an Asian concept. And you said something about Mediterranean as well. And of course, pizza has been big business. So I'm going to spend the next year or so observing what you're going to do to bring some of those types of products to you, to market. So,
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jim. I'd rather hear what you have to say.
Pizza, but man, I really wish we had a pizza brand. That has been I'll tell you what, ice cream and pizza, the ultimate American comfort foods. Those kind of products have just thrived in this COVID environment. It's been amazing to watch.
Yeah, fascinating. So it's interesting to see how you have now gone into a growth industry, because you seem to be in the right type of dining category at the right moment, as hoteliers are struggling out there to make ends meet. I've seen nothing but positive news coming out of a lot of the quick serve restaurants. Yeah. People don't necessarily want to go to even fast casual as often or sit down in your traditional Fridays, Applebee's type of.
I've been eating a lot more Big Macs and Whoppers than typical.
Oh, really? I didn't even know you ate Big Macs and
I would say I went from once a year to once a month.
Wow. I also love Jamba. Back when I used to teach at NYU, I would always get the Jamba juice that it was known back then downstairs, and come up and teach that class with my Jamba.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite brands. Jamba is one of my favorite brands.
So Jim, there's a lot of opportunity for you. So how does it work for you and your franchise team? Do you go out to folks that already own QSR restaurants? Are you hitting up people with gas stations and 7-Elevens? Are you hitting folks that we all know in the travel and hospitality business? Yeah,
and the answer is yes to all that, Glenn. The nice thing is the head of my development team here. In fact, the head of it and many of his lieutenants came out of the hotel business. So there's a lot of connectivity.
Fascinating.
To particularly with groups like AHOA. Mm-hmm. So very strong connectivity there. In fact, I just got a call from one of my all-time favorite franchisees at Hilton, Bharat Patel. I'm sure you guys know him.
Yep.
And he called me up. He said, "What are you doing at Focus?" And I thought, and I hadn't talked to him for a couple of years. And he said, I told him what I was doing. He said, "I'm one of your franchisees." I had no idea.
Right.
And so, Bharat's found ways of developing McAlister's, right, in close proximity to some of his limited service restaurants, right, that don't have a lot of options. Mm-hmm. So that's been a strategy for him. So I think there's a lot of connectivity with hotels. Clearly with current QSR owners, it's just like in the hotel business. You have some guys that have just astounding numbers of restaurants. I mean, it blows my mind when you talk to people who've gone from 0 to 200 McAlister's or Wendy's or something. It's
right.
Crazy. So yeah, and then there's a lot of non-traditional opportunities in this space, and travel plazas and university locations and airports, and so there's just.
And how about that front office manager, that assistant general manager, general manager, that are looking for opportunities outside the hotel business, because there are a lot of people on the street right now.
Anthony, that's a great point, and I'll tell you, I've even gone to my own LinkedIn channel. and basically talked about QSR. And the way I think about it, it's part of the hospitality business. At the end of the day, it's people serving people, and instead of giving them a place to lay their head and sleep, we're basically feeding them. So it's just a different branch of the same tree. So for people who have a lot of passion to serve and passion for hospitality, I mean, this is kind of one of those places to look that maybe they hadn't considered in the past.
Interesting. So what is it, an average? I don't need to get specific numbers, but what is the differences between trying to open up a Carvel or an Auntie Anne's or a Schlotsky's compared to opening up a traditional select service hotel? What are some of the differences there?
Yeah, I mean, these are not the same level of investments of say building a Hampton, right? It's probably a tenth of the cost of building a Hampton in this day and time. So the capital requirements are a lot lower. A lot of the real estate is leased versus purchased. The time of construction is compressed. So there are definitely some development differences, but it's
right now I would imagine you can get some really good lease deals if you're in this space, especially in New York.
Again, another great point, guys. That's exactly right. So it's for those who have capital right now, who came into this pandemic, right, well capitalized. I mean, man, the world is their oyster right now. There's a lot of good hunting out there at the moment.
Fascinating. So what is the difference in return on investment for these? Because obviously you're not going to make the same amount of money. I say obviously, but maybe it's not obvious in an average day at a Carvel outlet as you would at a hotel back in 2019.
Yeah, I will tell you, I think it varies in this business, and the variable is the quality of the operator, right? Mm-hmm. If you know what you're doing and you're a good seasoned operator, right, your returns are comparable to what you'll find in the limited service hotel space.
Fascinating.
Right? But if you're not, if you don't have a lot of scale and perhaps you're not quite the operating as you should, it's going to be substantially less.
The perfect example is my example in the beginning is I went to that Carvel since I'm born, and I haven't been there in a while. And I go back, and it's what I want today. It's got all the technology today. It's got all the beautiful billboards, so I can see all this beautiful ice cream. But it feels like when I was a kid. So he's a good operator. He's paying attention. He's still really nice behind the counter. He was pleasant. He looked like he remembered me. Yeah. I can't imagine he remembered me. And it was just really a great feeling, and I can't wait to give him my money again.
Well, Anthony, I don't think you're the typical customer. I think people do know who you are, and they would remember you, right? But they know who you are.
I tend to forget that.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a circle. So, Jim, we already talked about the obvious. There's a lot of opportunity for growth and expansion simply because you don't have as many units as Hampton Inn has around the country with all of these different brands. Yeah. But what about what you can do internally, such as technology, that you're looking forward to be able to do that'll catapult you 15, 20 years into the present day?
Yeah, again, and you guys know this. You guys have been around brands a long time too. I mean, there's no silver bullet here, right? It's really doing a lot of things well, consistently over time, right? All the way from, Anthony, you brought up, cleanliness. I mean, it's something you never take for granted. It's something very, very basic, but you're always working on operational excellence and efficiency. Digital is clearly a big investment opportunity here. We're by the time I left Hilton, that was the highest. We had the highest rated app in all of hospitality, including the third parties and everybody else. Right? We did some really good stuff there, and we're bringing that same kind of that same playbook here to focus. So big investments in digital. And to show you how fast this industry is changing. I mean, it just 2 or 3 years ago, digital was just, it was single digits. Mm-hmm. Today, in our portfolio, we're averaging anywhere from 20 to 40% of your sales mix is in the digital channel. So the world was moving that way anyway. But COVID accelerated the inevitable, and you locked away 330 million people. And guess what? They all learned how to interact with quick service restaurants a little differently.
Right.
and they ain't going back.
Right. And even if you look at what we're doing, our podcast, we're going live every day, and we're in front of everyone. And our customer, the person that listens to our show, is not only your customer, but probably owns a lot of hotels and probably owns a lot of your brands.
Yep.
It's amazing what this show has been able to do just by let's every day 12 o'clock get people to look forward to something, and they're used to it now. And now it won't go away even after the pandemic because they're used to it.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Good
So
point.
it seems like it's a big opportunity, but it also seems like it's a big challenge in the time of a national crisis to try to roll out an entire digital strategy to suddenly meet a much larger percentage of people that want to use that purchasing channel than have ever done before.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Glenn, I will look at it a little differently. Our brands started investing in digital early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate to think what that performance story would have looked like had we not. Because as an example, McAlister's, that's the brand I'm thinking of, it's off the top of my head. They've done digital extremely well. That was about half of their business during the pandemic. So dining rooms closed down. But because you had those channels built and you had an app for consumers to use, guess what? They could stay in business. And a lot of those, I would say most of those owners have just thrived this year because of that, right? So it's so I think early adoption of digital certainly paid off. And again, as I said, it's very quickly going to become table stakes. And so if you're not playing in these channels or you can't afford to play in these channels, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
And you know what? When you talk about table stakes, whether it be cleanliness or digital, it's crazy to me, even in our business, that people resist it. It's like we're dealing with table stakes. We're dealing with reality. We're dealing like you have a bed in when I was doing Hotel Impossible. It's like you have a bed in a room because people have to go to sleep, but you don't have a reservation system that they can book on. You want them to call. Well, no one in the last 10 years has called a hotel to book a reservation, especially if it's not a brand. And one hotel just recently didn't have credit cards, wouldn't allow credit cards because it was too expensive. I mean, it's crazy that today, even in your side of the business, that people aren't understanding this isn't a nice to have. This is a must have.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, and in this industry, it's changed fast. In my mind, it was a little bit more of a gradual transition in the hotel space over about a 10-year period. That's a very, very compressed timeline in this space, 2 or 3 years. And again, if you're a subscale brand, you don't have the means of playing in these channels, it's going to be really tough. On the other hand, that also creates opportunities for brands or companies like Focus, right, to be able to buy these chains, bring them in and hook them up to our engines, right, and provide great value for the owners almost immediately.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to say something, and then I'm going to ask a question related to that. One, the hotel business is a little sexy, and people get excited if you own a Hilton or whatever. It's not as sexy if you own maybe a quick service brand. So one, talk to that, and two, what does Focus do for, like, you have a person in charge of Carvel, a person in charge of Cinnabon, but then they report up into Focus. How does that work? Explain to people how that works and how individualized each brand is, even though they roll up into Focus.
And maybe you could compare it to how we know how the hotel business works as
well. Well, I'll tell you what, it's kind of interesting, guys, because now Focus is set up just like the hotel business. Can you imagine that?
Huh.
So I would say in the hotel business, we spent a good decade trying to figure out, the proper way, the most efficient way of setting up the organization, right, and making sure no one brand ever got lost or homogenized, right? And it did. It took us a good 10 years to get that formula right, and we did it. I was able to come to Focus because
and you're one of the few that did it. I would say you're one of the few that did it.
Well, okay, anyway, so I was able to come here. And I would say we were able to reorganize. We got the senior management team. I explained the principles, how it could work, this and that. They added their expertise of these brands in this industry, and basically we've completely reorganized how our brands, how they're set up, how they function, and I think we've given them the best of all worlds because we do have small dedicated teams, right? To make sure that you're protecting each brand's DNA and the things that make them special and unique. But the majority of the resources that are behind them can be shared either at a category level or an enterprise level. And that's where you get more efficiencies. And you can take those savings, you can just plow those right back into demand generation. So that's what we've been able to do here since in my 10 months.
So Glenn, would it be a stretch to say that's kind of what Pebblebrook is trying to do with their new company that they were on the show yesterday?
No, it does sound awfully familiar. And for those of you who want to learn more about what that's all about, check out our show yesterday with John Borch, the CEO of Pebblebrook. So, Jim, you've been there 10 months, you just said. How long do you have to be in a role as CEO of this company before you start to really feel confident about making changes that are going to put the company in the direction that you want?
The caveat to that is with or without a pandemic, Glenn.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Because that complicates everything, because it could make your point of view skewed a little bit, right?
Yep. I'm going to answer that a little differently. I think, again, clearly COVID has been a tragedy on so many different levels, personal levels for businesses and business owners. I mean, I don't want to lose sight of that idea. At the same time, there's always a silver lining in a crisis. And the silver lining here is that I could use my time very differently in these first 10 months. But normally, if this were a normal course of business, you'd be flying all over the place. You're meeting with franchisees. We're all meeting each other at conferences, right? We're doing speeches. Yep. This place is just full of people coming in to be trained and new franchisees. I mean, right? It's not been like that. It's been incredibly quiet. So this pandemic has given me the gift of time. I inherited a really strong executive team. Right. And so we've been able to bring my expertise in franchising and multi-brand brand management, couple that with their expertise in QSR and their intimate knowledge of these brands and the franchisees. We've been able to put that together and do some pretty cool things. To your point, I don't know if I would have been able to do it that fast had I not had the team in place and had I not had the gift of time.
Right. And if you look at this show, Glenn, we would never have someone like Jim or someone like John or a lot of these CEOs on the show if everything was just normal. It would be like, yeah, we would get them, but we would get like one every couple of months. Whereas today, everybody's got a little bit more time, including myself. I traveled, 300,000 miles, 250,000 miles last year. I didn't have any TV shows last year, and I traveled more miles last year than I did when I had 3 TV shows. So I quieted my mind down a little bit, and I think I've been more effective, maybe doing less things, but more effective. And I think that that's a really true statement. And so coming out of this, you'll really understand your team. And, typically when you come into a position like yours, you don't have a strong executive team, because that's one of the reasons you're brought in, is because things aren't maybe going right. That to have a great executive team so already, and then have time to really understand everything, and then bring your experience. I mean, I would imagine you guys are going to be undeniable once you come out.
I'll tell you, I am so excited about 2021 because, again, we've had that gift of time. We've built a lot of competencies and different functions in the company. We've made investments in digital. When I look at the people running these brands, I'll put them against any team I ever had in the hotel business. And so I think we're going to go into 2021 in a very, very strong way.
So just out of curiosity, does every one of your brands have like their own president and CEO?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a dedicated brand leader. And again, the idea is that, someone has to wake up each and every day thinking nothing about Carvel or Moe's or Schlotsky's or whatever. Right. But that was my point a few minutes ago. I feel like we've given the brands the best of all worlds because they've got that dedicated focus, right, and advocacy, but it's kind of behind them, right? We're the way we're organized, we work across categories or across the whole entire portfolio of brands, and that's where you get all your efficiencies. And so, again, I think we've got the best of all worlds.
I got another important question before Glenn gives more important questions. Have you been, with all these wonderful brands, have you been, like, as you're playing, your music and you're relaxing, have you ever thought of, when you're thinking of like Cinnabon or Carvel, and say, I wonder if we can put this thing on the menu? No one ever thought about it before, but I've had this creative moment. But then you wake up the next morning and go, I'm not going in there and doing that because I'm going to embarrass myself.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I would love if you guys could ever spare the time. I will invite you to Atlanta and we will give you a culinary tour, and I'll show
I'm
show you guys how this works.
Awesome.
Because it is 24/7 innovation. I was in the Cinnabon kitchen the other day, and they're testing cinnamon because we buy all of our cinnamon from Indonesia, and it looks like that supply might be threatened, right? These guys were down there doing tests that you'd expect to see in a lab someplace, right? Trying to make sure we have a plan B so the supply chain doesn't get disrupted. I'd love to be able to show you guys all the stuff, how you make a fudgy the whale cake. You let me know when you're available, and we'll
that's awesome, Jim. I would love that.
We're available right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Make sure that we don't do anything anymore.
I'm sick and tired of like that thing I played in the beginning. Like I think it was Joey when he said in March, "I want to go."
Yeah, that's right.
I've been saying to Glenn every day.
Right. It's so funny. It's so true. All right, Jim, I did want to ask you one question going back a topic, but then you got into this food kitchen stuff. What is it like with product R&D in the food business? How often are they supposed to come up with something new? How do you know if it's good? What is it like to make sure you have a product that can be replicated tens and tens and tens and hundreds of thousands times a day and have the same quality?
Yeah, well, and again, that's exactly why we have a kitchen and we have a chef for every brand that we have, right? So, and again, it's not dissimilar to what you guys see in the hotel business, right? If you put your customer, if you keep abreast of the trends, you know what people want. If you're testing things along the way with your customers, you're including your franchisees in, right, and helping them stress test the ideas. Right. And you do all the appropriate kinds of market, the tests with the control groups, et cetera. You come up with it's a winning formula. So there are a lot of steps to it. But I would say as long as you're keeping the customer and the franchisee right in the center of your decision, right, you're going to be fine.
Right. Fascinating. All right. So back to the question that I wanted to follow up before Anthony had a couple of questions. You've got all of these different brand leaders. What is the strategy? And I guess the same applies to the hospitality industry to give them control over what they're doing, but also to pull all of the division heads together for a common focus for your company.
Yeah. Yeah. The way we were organized initially when I got here is you basically had 7 brands, extremely autonomous, right? And that's great because there's a lot of accountability that way, but there was very little activity that kind of spanned across brands. And so probably the most succinct way I can say it is to say that our leaders do have they still have the autonomy, but it's freedom in a bit of a smaller framework. Because for example, there are just things that we agree to as a company, we're just going to do. And whether that's investments in digital, investments in consumer insights, understanding consumer trends, right? That's not up for debate. That's just how we manage brands in the company. And so everybody needs to get behind those kind of investments. Beyond that, our leaders have a lot of autonomy for how their brands evolve.
And are you using your scale for purchasing? I mean, before you got there, was your scale being used for purchasing?
Yeah, Anthony, another good question from you guys. That is one of the fundamental differences between the hotel business and the QSR. The supply chain is everything, right? That's how you get food to market. Without your supply chain, you don't get food to the stores. So, I mean, supply management is important in the hotel space too, because you got to buy mattresses and sheets and towels. You got to do that, and you got to do that very efficiently, right? But it's not like if Hilton didn't have a supply chain function that the hotels couldn't open for business the next day because they could. You can't do that here. So supply chain is one of those critical ways that you add value to your owner in this space, right, and that you achieve the consistency and safety across 1,000 different units.
Right. That makes a whole lot of sense because if we look outside to McDonald's, one of the reasons why they created McRib was to leverage low pork prices at a particular time. And they decided to not keep it as those prices went up, and they brought it back every once in a while. Yep. As it's tuned towards what they think the pricing can be.
You know what? You just solved one of the mysteries of my life. McRib just came back. It's back on TV. And I turn to my daughter and I go, why do they keep bringing it in?
Well, honestly,
I learned more from you than I learned from Jeopardy.
Well, listen, if it was there full time, people wouldn't. There wouldn't be as much press around the McRib and stuff like that either, which I don't think would generate the same sort of sales. Mike McManus is asking, what are some of the qualifications that you look for in bringing a new brand to focus? It's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, yeah, it is a good question. As I said, I'm looking for a couple things. Number one, I'm looking to complement what already exists in our portfolio. And secondly, you have to ask the question, all right, can the brand we're looking at bringing on, can it bring us strengths that maybe we don't have today, right? Can it complement us? And then the third question I'm always asking is can we add more value to the owners of that brand today if they're a part of Focus? I mean, it's really those three questions that I ask.
Yep.
You know what? If I could just kind of, again, my job is just to be the tangent guy. I want to go on a tangent because I want to teach young people what's going on right now. You own these iconic brands, right? Your company runs these iconic brands. The brands I grew up with, brands you grew up with. You're the boss in charge of this big company. You 10, 20 years ago were so far removed from us. You were so important and we don't know who you are. And you don't exist to us. You only exist to the investors and to the owners in these conventions. Coming on our show and being able to be this transparent, and basically a lot of our clients buy these brands and a lot of people use your stores. It's really, I think, an example of how young people have to be now going up. It's different. If you're not taking these podcasts and you're not learning how to use the internet for your leverage, you're going to go out of business. So I really want to say thank you so much for making yourself available, because you're teaching not only me so much, but you're teaching our audience so much. But the thing I think that you teach most is that you're being transparent and you're being available.
Good. Thank you. Yep. We're trying. In this role, I mean, you're right. You got a lot of quote unquote customers to take care of, right? It's just not the people who own the company and their investors, and it's your franchisees, it's your customers, and it's your team, right? You got to be available to everybody.
Yep. So I want to, before we move on to another topic that I want to talk about, what do you think is your biggest opportunity, and what do you think is your biggest challenge as you go forward in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, this company has a lot of different opportunities. As I look at the individual brands, I get very excited by Jamba and McAlister's. Those, I mean, all the brands obviously still have some upside, but those two brands really need to be playing at a national level. We've got a substantial international business. About 25% of our portfolio is outside of the U.S. And it's a lot of that is Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon. So in an era where you've kind of saturated malls, right? International becomes a great way of growing some of these other mall-based brands, right? So we've got that. I touched on that we have this really cool licensing business. So you can buy Cinnabon on Harry and David. You can buy Cinnabon products in Target and Walmart in the frozen food section, right? That is the sky's the limit, I think, with food distribution outside of the bricks and mortar. And it's not just an EBITDA play for this company, but what a way of serving customers and kind of different day parts. And what a way of building brands in a unique way that most people in our space don't have. So right. I mean, we get billions and billions of free impressions every year because our products are in these various channels. So, that's another opportunity.
Can you sell through Focus? Like, can I go to focus.com or Focus and buy any one of these brands?
Yes. As a matter of fact, go to focusbrands.com and you can find out all you want to know about it. There's a whole section.
What I'm saying is, can I buy a Fudgy the Whale from Focus?
Oh. Yes, you can. You go to the Carvel.com. You can buy cakes. And a little bit later this year, hopefully you'll be able to buy a Fudgy the Whale cake through Harry and David, Walmart.com, Target.com, etc. So yeah, we're giving our customers a lot of cool optionality. And would
you ever consider doing it through Focus, like having the Focus brand?
Yeah, we will. But to our point earlier, Anthony, right now, Focus brand is really a name that investors know, not customers yet. Right. At some point when that makes sense, absolutely, you're absolutely right.
I think it's interesting that you said about the purchasing the products outside your typical retail environment, because you also mentioned dependency. Well, not dependency, but high inclusion of some of your things in malls. As that business seems to ebb with the natural flow of the way society is going, it seems like you've got a good opportunity to supplant that business and increase it through some of these other mechanisms.
Correct. So I think mall traffic has been challenged clearly in this environment. In fact, the brands that have probably hurt the most are Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon.
Right.
The rest of them have drive-throughs, and they can do curbside and third party. They have all kinds of different ways of serving customers in a pandemic. Right. If the mall is closed, there's not much you can do if you're an Auntie Anne's or a Cinnabon. So, and then kind of the longer term trend, right, is customers are gradually moving away from malls. So we'll have to determine what that ultimately looks like in time. But for us, our focus right now is growing the brands outside of the U.S. Mm-hmm. It's working on operational efficiency. So even though there might be less foot traffic in the malls, right, owners are still gleaning a nice profit. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's important. And then we're also experimenting with different kinds of locations. What happens if you could do you take a Carvel, you take a Jamba, you take a Cinnabon, you put those all under one roof. Right. Yeah. All of a sudden your average unit volume is substantial enough to be able to afford higher rents in areas with a lot greater foot traffic. So we're there are all kinds of different ways that we can take a kind of mature brands like that are mall based and basically help them evolve and continue to thrive.
I really like that. All right. So I think, Jim, you need not just a fried chicken chain, but a Korean fried chicken chain. I think that's going to really take off in the future. All right. So I think that's really what I want to see. And I love the idea of bringing all these brands together. All right. I want to talk a little bit about your other passion, piano. For those of you who don't know, he's a classically trained pianist and absolutely incredible. You hinted that you've got some albums, and Anthony, we've got a quick clip that we're going to play of just how awesome Jim is at playing piano. Something he used to do at Hilton events, as a matter of fact. I mean, how cool is that? Jim, I know that you spend a lot of time playing the piano, and it must be a good way for you to clear your head and to think of great new ideas and how you're going to manage your operations.
That's right. I don't know where I did this, but somewhere along the lines, I started connecting music and business. And part of it, what I learned is particularly when you're in the hotel business and you're talking to 2,000 general managers, and you've got to inspire them. And so what am I going to do? Tell seasoned general managers that it's important to be nice to people or to keep your hotel clean? Yeah. So what I learned was that even though maybe I don't have anything necessarily super new to say, but I can say it in a very different way that kind of hits you here. And music is it allows you to do that. It's a universal language, and it speaks to the heart.
Very rarely is someone at your level of talent in the music industry has the ability to be at the level you are in business. I mean, that's usually two sides of your brain. I mean, how do you manage that? Or do you feel it's just, it all works perfectly together?
Well, yeah, I do. I try. I try to make it all work together. But yeah, I don't know where it came from. I was just given this gift, and I started playing when I was about 6, and I was on the path to be a concert pianist, and changed my mind and got a business degree when I was about 20. So, but it's something I've always done, and I just kind of figured a way how to bring it in, how to incorporate it in business, and it just seems to work. Again, it's I think there's a bit of a novelty factor. People don't expect it. They expect people who are CEOs to talk about football and their golf game, right? And then when you come out and you're playing Mozart for someone, it kind of throws them off a little bit. So yeah, I really enjoy doing it.
Well, it's really refreshing from Glenn talking about his pork butt.
Hey. He's from Memphis. He can appreciate a good pork butt.
That's right, man. That's right. I lived there a long time.
It must be strange for you moving to Atlanta and getting accustomed to a new city. But once you get back out there, conferences and events, it's going to be really weird for you not knowing everybody in the room. That'll be a big change for you.
That's going to be a big change, and I've had to work hard at meeting the franchisees because again, everyone's locked away. In fact, I was just telling some folks today. I've been here 10 months, and I'm kind of an extroverted personality. I think I might know 50 people in this company right now. I know names, I know org charts, right? I just don't know people because everyone's been working from home, right? So I cannot wait for the day to come where people are back here. I can feel their energy and get to know them.
Yeah,
excellent.
And that's so critical. I mean, I think we're all feeling that at this point. It's like people's like nobody's going to shake hands and hug anymore. I said, wait.
No.
I said
you cannot not hug if you're in the hospitality business.
Especially if you're in the hospitality business and you're Italian. There's no way to hug
Jim, before we wrap up today, how about telling us about how people can engage focused brands in any particular business endeavors they might be doing? Say they want to open up an Auntie Anne's or a McAlister's or whatever, or those.
Listen, I have 13 incredible franchise directors of sale that anybody would love to talk to you guys, or shoot me an email if it's easier, and I'll get it to the right hands. And whatever information you need, whatever we need to do, we'd love to talk to you.
Great. Jim, thank you so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it. This is so great. And now you've given Anthony and I something to look forward to: food kitchens in Atlanta.
There you go. Come on, bring it on. Let's go.
And if you have time, stay in the green room for a minute, and we'll talk to you. We'll continue to talk to you. But if you have a minute, all right. So nice meeting you. It was an absolute pleasure. I learned a lot today.
Thank you. Me as well.
Great. Thank you. All right, so let's wrap this up, Anthony. That was a lot of fun. And one of the cool things that we get to do with this show now is kind of explore little different facets that are not just pure hospitality, but a little bit hospitality adjacent. But I hope everyone out there sees how it all fits together.
What I like is that there's a kid coming out of school today that maybe has a friend and they want to go into business together and they can get some money together, some parents, friends, whatever. Now's the time to do it. Get in touch with them and go open yourself a franchise. Go open yourself, a Carvel. Go open yourself one of his franchises and become an entrepreneur. And I think this really allows the barrier of entry is so much smaller than it is a hotel.
Yep. Now, listen, we're not getting paid to say these things, but based on all the conversations that we're having with hotel investors out there, new lines of investment are needed, and QSR restaurants seem to be the thing of the future. Anthony, I just
I didn't want to say when he was on, but it was just, and I never say it, but like they should be advertising our show simply because it is a perfect way for people that are buying hotels that may be a little gun shy right now to buy some quick service restaurants. So, so
right,
anyway,
hey, I want you to know I went into this honestly, but I like that idea as well.
And what a great guy, and just a great visionary.
I know.
I love the fact that it took him to retire to get a bigger job.
Listen, I know he's still backstage, and I hate to say this, but he's really one of my favorite people in this business. So open and honest. And when I was young, and there was a time when I was young, he was one of those guys that really took me under his wing and embraced me. And that shows what a true gentleman is.
Yeah, you know what? And that says a lot. And you both share a love of music. And it's funny, his sensibilities remind me a little bit of you, like the way he is. And so it's because what I find interesting about you, you're very intense and you're not that intense. But it's good because I'm usually just too intense.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're just very intense. All right. All right, everybody. Let's set this up tomorrow. We're going to be, I feel like we're going to be cheating on Jim's former company, Hilton, but we're going to be doing a tour with IHD focused on their new Atwell brand. You'll get to see everything. And if you guys are listening on the audio podcast feed, sorry, we'll try to be as descriptive with our words as possible.
I got to tell you something, Glenn. This is a good show, man. I wish I was a co-host of this show. This is a good show.
I know. Well, one day, maybe.
Every day it's been so different. I mean, it's such a, and even for me, I came on. I had no idea I was going to be talking to Jim and Focus.
No, as a matter of fact, Anthony was like, "What's with the deal with the Fudgy the Whale behind you?" He had no idea what was going on.
Well, I knew Jim was coming on. I knew he was former Hilton. I knew Focus Brands. You told me about it, but I didn't put it all together because we don't have those kind of meetings. It was just like we'll show up, and I really think it helps us if you look at the way we interview. It's like I'll go off on a tangent, come back, then follow up on the question you asked. And I just think, the less preparation, the better the questions.
That's right. The best argument I've ever seen for laziness in my life. But the truth is, we've been at this for decades. We know what we're talking about, and we know how to listen.
Listen. It's actually, and I'll be honest with you, it is absolutely the way I run things because it works. Listen, I'm a preparer. Everybody knows I'm a preparer. But when things like this, you want to just get the energy and just ask questions that people are sitting on their couch or at home or in their office want to ask. And if I prepare too much, I'll forget the really important, fun questions. Like, did you ever think about a treat that you didn't want to, tell your chef because you didn't want to be laughed at?
Yep. All right. Let's wrap this up so we can go say goodbye to Jim backstage. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, subscribe by texting the word hotel to 66866. Get every single show that we're doing in one volume every single week, along with other news headlines and my No Vacancy News Today report. And sometimes we got some great content from Anthony in there as well. So thank you all so much for watching. Anthony, I've got one life, so I know I'm going to blaze on as